Masnamkele kwinkqubo to EVOP Voice of the Bay. Good evening and welcome once again in your favorite talk show on channel 260, that is your Mpuma Kappa TV. Tonight, I am hosting a number of guests. The first one is Mr. Mlungisi John, NAFCOC Nelson Mandela President. We will be talking about extortion. Again, Mr. Malatisi Kamgana, Azapo Provincial Deputy Chairperson. I will be talking to him about the Biko public lecture that will be taking place tomorrow at Nelson Mandela Bay University. Lastly, segment 345, it's going to be a panel discussion. We'll be talking about the power shift in the Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality, DA and Good. We invited the UDM on the 11th hour. They decided not to form part of this panel discussion. Nevertheless, we are going to continue with our panel discussion from half past up until 8 o'clock. Mr. Mlungisi John, NAFCOC Nelson Mandela Bay President, good evening and welcome to VOB Voice of the Bay with myself. Tell us, how does extortion affect your business as NAFCOC?
Good evening, Percy. It is definitely affecting us as NAFCOC business people in the Nelson Mandela Metro. People are losing their businesses. Investors are running away. People are closing down their businesses. And people now are starting to see that the extortion, it is killing and destroying our black businesses in terms of our locations in particular.
Let's look at the business, in fact, in tendering with the government institution. How does this extortion affect you in terms of tenders? Is there any money that is being demanded by certain government officials in order for you to get tenders?
Yeah, obviously. What is happening, if now you were to be awarded a certain tender, you must know a particular person from the government will demand money before that tender is being processed in terms of a PO. They will demand money from it. Extortion starts from there. Again, when you've got now the business, you must pay from the person who now must sign your jobs, and you must pay the person who must do payment. So that's part of extortion. So in the event that we end up with nothing in terms of profit in that particular business. So it's affecting us in many ways. So in tendering system, the way it is now there, it's definitely affecting us. Because even if you are being awarded now to work in a certain area, you must go and report to the certain councillor. He must now be part of this whole business that you will be running within the certain area with him. So that's extortion. Because now they are being saying that these politicians, these councillors are involved in terms of these extortions. It starts there. So they are becoming a problem, because I've been saying this, that politicians, councillors are involved. And if we cannot raise those issues to say, you cannot be in business and be a politician, it can't work together. So that is why most of our own businesses, especially in our metro, people are not benefiting, because the directorates or the managers of these municipalities, they've got their own companies. So they know if you're tendering, that particular tender will go to his own business. So then people are not benefiting. They are benefiting themselves. All these politicians are benefiting in terms of these councillors also.
So this extortion business is also taking place within the government spheres, the municipality,
Of course.
provincial, at a provincial level and at national level.
All over. It starts from the regions, the province, and the national office. You must be able to pay each official until you get your business.
Let's leave it there, that one. Let's talk about extortion in our areas, townships, even in suburbs. How do you survive now that there is this habit? How does your business survive?
Well, we are not really surviving. Most of my members have closed down. I've got members that they're owning petrol stations, which are now they've closed down. You know, I've got members that I know that they've been awarded to do constructions on certain sites in terms of our townships. It's not working. They end up losing everything because if you don't have that protection fee, then it means you will not be able to work here. And if you cannot pay those monies, it means you can't work. So it's affecting us big time. So most of us, it's just that it's a grace of God. How do we live?
What do you think could be the solution in this whole thing?
Well, we have been engaging with South African Police Service, and there was a promise that members will be deployed in this region. And there was a promise that vehicles will be deployed in this region. I haven't seen any members. I haven't seen any special police or they're talking about NIU, National Intervention Unit. I haven't seen them. I haven't seen any more vehicles because we need to do crime prevention. We don't want people to die and then we call police in. We need to do crime prevention. Police must be visible so that you can see that police are visible. So in that way, if you can work together with South African Police Services, members of business people around us, that we can work, sit together and find a solution. We are willing to assist police. We've been telling them we want to work with you guys.
Lastly, before we wrap it up, do you support the call of deploying soldiers? Because there are a lot of people who have returned some letters to the office of the president. Do you support the call
No, I don't.
of deploying soldiers?
No, I don't. Soldiers, they are not trained to do crime prevention. So I don't really support
So
that.
do you think the police alone, together with the community members, can overcome this
Yes,
sketch?
I believe that we can overcome. With police working with us, with the community, we can overcome. But people must come out and work together with us so that we can fight this crime together. I believe that without soldiers, we can do it.
What's your observation now? The police are working with the community members, but there is an escalation of robberies and other serious crimes.
We came up and saying those national intervention unit that will be coming to our region should be screened. We need police that are not coming from our region, that they don't know us. Because those that are working with us now, they know us and they get used on us. So if we get now police from Gauteng or Durban area or Western Cape, which they don't know the area, which they don't know us, they will be able to police.
So as business, you are saying, as the president of this region, Gwinafkok, you are saying you don't want to see not a single soldier here.
No, we don't encourage soldiers at all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mlungisi John Nafcock, President of Nelson Mandela Bay. We wish you all the best in your working relations with the police officers. Nkosi kakhulu.
Thank you, sir.
Siyabulela.
Nkosi.
That was Mr. Mlungisi John Nafcock, Nelson Mandela, President. After the ad break, Mr. Malatisi Kamgana, Provincial Deputy Chairperson of AZAPO. Senamkela kwakho siyabulela sibambe ngazo zibini ngokuba kunye nathi kwinkqubo yethu iVOB Voice of the Bay. Once again, good evening and welcome back from the ad break. Now I am with Mr. Malatisi Kamgana, who is the Deputy Chairperson of AZAPO here in the Eastern Cape. You call it Mkoseli, Voiseli Mkoseli. Nevertheless, good evening, sir.
Good evening to you too, Mr. Percy, and to your viewers.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kamgana, I understand that AZAPO will be having a public lecture tomorrow at Nelson Mandela University in commemoration of the Biko's death, which happened, I think it was 1979 on the 12th of September.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Tell us more about the public lecture. Who will be delivering? What is going to happen exactly?
Okay. But basically, let me start with the dates. The dates I confirm it's going to be tomorrow, the 12th of September.
Yeah.
The time will be at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and the venue will be the Nelson Mandela University. So the keynote speaker will be Advocate Ngugai Tobi, that will be doing the key dress note, key dress note, and he's the one that will be making the address.
Yes. Mr. Ngugai Tobi, to make a correction, it's not 1979, but 12 September 1977, when Biko died. We are coming from the elections. You have been doing these public lectures. Do you think people get the message about the ideas of Biko? The reason why I'm asking this question, it's simply because in the recent elections, you didn't perform well as AZAPO. Do you think people understand what Biko was representing?
Look, Mr. Lamani, firstly, let's point out something. In these elections, AZAPO performed well compared to the previous elections.
Do you have a seat?
To a point where
if you performed well, do you have a seat at the national level?
Our growth compared to previous elections is about 100% in terms of growth compared to the previous elections. So we have performed well. And the other issue that I want to bring to your attention is that people do resonate with the ideas of Biko. It is just that we need to revive the ideology of black consciousness. And the reason why I'm saying this, Pupes, is that firstly, we need to look at the principle of equality, because I think it is fading the true essence of understanding what equality is. I'll make an example of this. If we talk about education and we compare in terms of having access to good education, now that is where we see the true stem of inequality within our country. And it is not that people do not see that there is inequality. Number two, let us go to health. If you look at health, our health system as a whole, and you observe the manner in which people have access to health, you'll find that people do realize that we do not have equal opportunities to health. Now, if we then come back to the issue of do people understand the true values or the ideologies of Biko, they do understand. I made an example earlier today. I was having a conversation with my colleagues where I said, we are in an era where people are desperate, they are hungry. And what is being given to them now is an apple instead of being given the seed to have apples. And to a point where their focus are more on the apple that are being provided instead of them wanting the seed to make sure that they earn the means of production. Now, the reason why I'm saying now they do resonate with the ideologies of Ubiko, it is because the realization is there that we are not equal within our country.
Okay, we've got only 4 to 3 minutes left. What does this ideology of black consciousness, or how can this idea or this ideology assist in the situation that we find ourselves in, e.g., crime?
Okay. Let us start here, but I think one of the things that Azapo advocates the most is that the land needs to be given back to its rightful owners. The reason for that is that we do not want the end product of the land, for instance. We do not want an end product where we are given the scraps of where the means of productions are. Now, if I then just take you back quickly to the era of Biko, black consciousness to him was not only an ideology, but was also a manifestation in terms of a action-orientated action, if I can put it that way. For instance, Ubiko used to say that we need to be more self-reliant as black people. Hence the establishments of community clinics. There was quite a lot that he did instead of in improving the fact that black people
I'm afraid,
ought to be
Mr.
self-reliant.
Kamgana, we are running out of time. Could you please respond to my question?
Okay.
Respond to
Now,
my question.
coming back to black consciousness, I'm on that. Now, if we talk about black consciousness, the first thing that we ought to remember is that I am a black person. I am capable. I am capable as a black person to be self-reliant on me. Now, when I'm saying I'm capable, I mean that I'm able to do whatever it is and even exceedingly as a black person.
Mr. Kamgana, just before we wrap it up, remind us about tomorrow's event. I've got less than a minute.
Okay. Tomorrow, yes, again, we will be at the Nelson Mandela University tomorrow. The date will be the 12th of September, 2024. The person that will be the keynote speaker will be Advocate Ngugai Tobi. And the theme is around the Steve Biko annual lecture.
Don't forget that you are in partnership with Nelson Mandela University. By the way, we thank you so much, Mr. Kamgana, for honoring our interview.
It's always a pleasure.
It's going to be our panel discussion around the issue of Nelson Mandela Municipality power shift that is expected soon. Thank you. Senamkela kwakho kwinkqubo yethu iVOB Voice of the Bay. Kanti ke ngalolu thuba sikunye nazo inkokheli sitshilo kaloku sathi besilindele nombutho we-United Democratic Movement. Unfortunately, they are not with us in this panel discussion. The parties that we have invited, there are a number of them, but they decided not to take part into this panel discussion. But tonight I am hosting the Democratic Alliance, Provincial Chairperson Yusuf Kasim, and Mr. Lawrence Troon, who is also a provincial leader of Good Party. He is also a councillor, the only councillor of Good in Nelson
You
Mandela
must say
Bay.
the only councillor, please. You can just say councillor.
The councillor of Good in the council chambers. Guys, good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much, Good Percy.
Good evening, Percy. Nice to be here.
Yes, Councillor Troon. Councillor Troon and you, Councillor Yusuf Kassim, both your parties, they are not part of the ruling coalition here in the Nelson Mandela municipality. But there are some reports that soon there will be a power shift. There will be some changes, and yet there are talks that are taking place that also involve especially your party, that is Democratic Alliance. We would like to know from your party about your view of your party about this power shift, the removal of the mayor, the replacement of the mayor, and yet, to my understanding, your party and the ANC, you both have 48 seats, but the ANC is talking about itself in this matter of changing the mayor. And yet you are equally in terms of seats in the council. What is your take on that?
The Democratic Alliance has been very clear that we believe that Nelson Mandela Metro Municipality cannot continue in the manner in which this coalition government has taken it down a road of political instability and poor governance. And we believe that it is important for us to be part of bringing stability so that we can not only have political stability, we can have economic stability, and that we can turn around this city. We've done it before as part of different coalition governments, and we are willing to be part of any solution that put the residents of our city first. You mentioned the ANC and you've mentioned the DA as two parties with the most seats in council. We are also the two parties with ward councillors in the city. And our ward councillors currently are under extreme pressure from their residents because of the poor performance of the different departments under different political party, political heads in this city. So a party like the EFF, who controls very important portfolios like infrastructure or electricity, they don't have ward councillors. And when they have not led those portfolios responsibly, it is our ward councillors who don't have control over those departments who have to answer to residents. And it's the same with the ANC. Their ward councillors also have to answer to residents. And I think the ANC have realized that if they continue with the status quo, because they are part of this coalition, they were part of electing Gary as the mayor, that they are also suffering from their own constituents because of the poor performance of this government. So we've made no secret of the fact that we have reached out to the ANC. I've written to the provincial secretary of the ANC, and we are open to discussions that can bring stability to Nelson Mandela.
Are you prepared to offer them the highest office in the municipality?
At this point, But Percy, the discussions are preliminary. So I cannot disclose anything further than that, because at this point we go into any potential discussions putting the residents of the city first. It's not about horse trading, and for the DA it's never been about horse trading. I think horse trading is what put us in the current mess that we have at the moment. So our participation in discussions is because as the party with the most votes in the last elections, we might have the same number of seats as the ANC. We got more votes than the ANC in 2021. We got over 2,500 more votes than them. We have to be part. We cannot fold our arms. We have to be part of any discussions that can lead to stability and good governance in our city. We cannot just opt out of that and say, well, you know, we're not part of this coalition
So-
that is bringing bad governance. We need to participate.
So are you also discussing on behalf of the smaller parties?
We are not engaged in coalition discussions. We are engaged in discussions that, or we have proposed discussions with the leadership of the ANC at a provincial level on how can we together discuss ways that good governance and stability can come to Nelson Mandela Bay. That is not a coalition
Okay,
discussion
so for
about
now,
who gets what
So
seat.
for now,
Yes.
you are busy discussing between you and the ANC.
We have written to the ANC's provincial leadership to ask for an engagement in that respect. So that discussion will be taking
Okay,
place.
fine. Let's bring in Councillor Tron, who is also the provincial leader or chairperson of Good Party. Your view on the power shift in Nelson Mandela. Are there any engagements with DA or the African National Congress?
Percy, first of all, what I want to say that any shift from this current government would be for the betterment of the people. Because we must agree that since this coalition has been in place, it's only turmoil, chaos, and hardship. In the last council meeting, I said, you know, under this government, we've become the #1 crime city in this country. Under this government, under Gary, and I know you don't like to hear about Gary, we had to return 430 million rand of grant funding that they did not spend. I serve on the standing committee of infrastructure. We had a meeting in December last year, and that standing committee is been governed by the EFF. Now, standing committees are supposed to have every 6 weeks, like the standing committee. The first one we had after December, Percy, was in August this year, for the first time. For 7-8 months, there was no standing committee on infrastructure and engineering. It says a lot what the EFF thinks about good governance. When we asked Kanya at that meeting in August, why did we not have standing committees, he refused to answer. And if you look at our communities, sewage is all over. Loss of water is all over. Why? Because you got a person like Kanya there who does not have a ward, Klambi. As Mr. Kasim has said, they are concerned because they've got wards and so on. Here you have a person who does not have a ward. He does not give a damn about good governance.
Okay.
From good side, what we want to say, we are not going to preempt anything. We are not going to run to any party to speak to them. Parties want to engage us, it's fine, we will engage them.
Okay, let's leave it there for now. We will go for a short commercial break, Councillor Tron. So masibaleke sengasevenkileni sizobuya kwakho sihlabele emgama nenkqubo yethu. Sibuyile kakhona sinamkela kwinkqubo yethu iVOB Voice of the Bay. Good evening once again and welcome back from the ad break. My guest tonight, Eastern Cape Provincial Chairperson of the Democratic Alliance, Yusuf Kasif, and Good Party Provincial Chairperson, Councillor Lawrence Tron. Once again, good evening.
Good evening.
The state of this municipality, you are both opposition parties. By in fact, starting from 2016, maybe you will agree with me when I'm saying, since 2016, there was no political stability in this municipality. We might know the reason of collusion government, but seemingly the misunderstanding amongst the political parties or different interests of the political parties all the time becomes a problem. How are you going to make it a point if now you have agreed to work with the ANC and other parties, how are you going to make it a point that that doesn't happen?
But Percy, what's important is to ensure that the interests of good governance prevail in any discussions that take place. I mentioned earlier that it should not just be about horse trading positions. When you speak about instability since 2016, you're quite correct. We've had, I think, 16 city managers, 7 mayors. We've gone through 5 different coalitions. However, when the DA and other parties were part of the coalition, parties like Good and ACDP and others, there was relative stability happening. We were getting on the track of good governance. In the first stint, 2016 to 2018, there was over 2 billion rand of reserves that were built up. Financial governance had improved. We had introduced things like ShotSpotter. And you look at now that contract, it hasn't been renewed since September last year. We've had over 200 killings in that period in the northern areas in my community. So there was relative stability, and you know as well as I do that it took bribery of councillors from corrupt contracts like the drain cleaning tender to sink that coalition. Again, there was relative progress made in the second stint just prior to the 2021 elections. And again, under Mayor Retief Odendaal, who was only a mayor for 9 months. Look at the track record in those 9 months. Over 20,000 potholes were repaired. Over 17,000 water leaks. Over 16,000 streetlights were repaired. We were able to move away from a drought. Look at what is happening today. Retief Odendaal, the motion to remove him was tabled the week after he instituted a forensic investigation into the electricity department of the city. So the forces of corruption, the forces that want to control this municipality to fill their own coffers, are the ones that have been hard at work to sink any coalition that has been making progress in the city. Okay. And that is why it's important that we are able to put principles at the forefront. Something very important happened on the 29th of May. This government of national unity has shown South Africa that there is a room for us who want to build South Africa, not break South Africa down, to find one another and to find ways in order to make progress, however that progress is made. But we're not going to do it when the kind of interests that have taken over trying to control what happens in the political instability in the city prevail. We're not going to allow that to happen. We want to be part of conversations where we say to one another, this is what needs to happen. Can we agree going forward towards the next elections in 2026? Can we agree that X, Y, and Z needs to happen for us to stop the decline that is taking place in the city?
Let's allow Councillor Troon also to make a point.
Percy, it does not only have to do with the stability of a government. Because I'm sure these guys would boast now that this coalition that we have, it is stable, so they say. But most importantly, it has to do with your competent people. Do you have competent people in those various positions? We speak about a metro that has an annual budget of 20 billion rand, my friend. I don't even know how many zeros that is. And you ask yourself, is the person at the steering wheel, before this, with how much did he work? Because 20 billion rand is a hell of a lot of money, Chief. If you have never worked with that type of money before, what makes you think that this person would be able to work with this money? Do you understand? Number two, you look at your Department of Safety and Security. There is absolutely nothing going on there. What I see now they want to do, because what you must remember, because we are the #1 city when it comes to crime, you must also understand that corruption thrives under disaster. Ne? Like you had with your Mandela funeral. How sad it was with the funeral people looted. So it's the same with when any like disaster thing, people loot. You would find now that the mayor wants to put up now the CCTV up everywhere. So what happened was, they said no, they're going to take funds from the municipality and send it to MBDA. Why? Why? Because the municipality has its own supply chain processes. Why can't it go through there? So when I said no, in the last standing committee, no funds is going to be transferred from the municipality, from safety and security, to MBDA. Because we got our own concerns what's going on there. Understand? So for me, I thought there was another mayor that was worse than this one. I'm not going to mention his name. But this one, if we must really be honest, it is the worst government that we've ever had before. Never have you seen so many like robots right through Stanford Road. There's no robots that is working. The lights that is off. The filth of the place. You ride through Helenvale, the sewage that is flowing in the streets. It has never been worse like this before. But yet, these guys both know they are a stable coalition. They are a stable at the expense of the people of Nelson Mandela Bay.
Just before we go for a commercial ad break, I would like to remind both of you that all the political parties in this municipality got their opportunity to govern in different collusions. Is that so? But they all failed to fill the vacancies of the EDs, of making it a point that those who are on suspension, their cases are finalized, but we'll talk more about that and check if that or if these issues doesn't add on this political instability in this municipality. Let's go for a commercial ad break. Good evening once again and welcome. And this is our last segment for the last time. Good evening.
Good evening.
Before we go for a commercial ad break, I have raised a question, whether you can say it's a question or a comment, but it has to do with instability in this municipality. 2016 till to date, in case there is a power shift in this municipality, with these two challenges, the suspensions and the vacancies, especially in these critical positions of the executive directors, there are a number of directorates without permanent EDs. How are you going to deal with these challenges?
So this particular challenge, Percy, is not simple. When the DA took over the city of Cape Town, when Helen Zille was the mayor, she also was a mayor in a very tenuous multi-party coalition. And it took 5 years of a single government to turn around the city. Mr. Troon has spoken about the massive budget that this city has. But there's also a massive administration, and there are interests at play. There are officials that work with politicians, and there's a relationship at play that does not benefit the residents of our city. One cannot be in government and have a mayor for 7 months, as was the case of Retief Odendaal, or 9 months, which was the previous stint that the DA was in government prior to the 2021 elections, and expect to turn around and build a stable administration in the city. People are on contracts. There are different partners that you have to negotiate with. People threatened to sink governments when you want to take difficult decisions. It's why we campaigned so strongly as the DA to get 50% plus one in the last elections. We didn't get it. But I do believe that residents have started to understand the consequences of the splintering of their vote across parties like the Northern Alliance. And it's not only the Northern Alliance. Parties like the Patriotic Alliance that are also part of this government, that are also complicit in the fact that budgets of the city, capital budgets, have been taken out of the northern areas where they got most of their votes and taken elsewhere in the city. Essentially, voters have been betrayed by these splintering of parties that they have put their faith in. I'm confident, Boet Percy, that if we can find stability on the right principles, one needs to be able to also ensure that there's an objective appointment of senior directors and senior officials in the city. It cannot be cadre deployment, and it cannot be based on individual interests. But I am also confident that going forward, our residents and our voters have learned a very difficult lesson. When they've put their faith in people like Gary, they've put their faith in parties like the Patriotic Alliance and these other parties that are part of this coalition that is making their life hell, really making their life hell. And that voters will have a say on this going forward.
Councillor True?
Yes, no, but as you say, having vacant funded posts is the biggest sin that any government department can have. Because what it means is that here's the funds, you just need to employ people because the funds are there. But in the manner how people are being recruited within the municipality, I would think personally to get some recruitment agency or the university to perform that function would be much better for me. Because your nepotism, your bribery, and all of the funny things that you get with this recruitment that we have, I'm actually glad that those positions are not filled, if you understand what I'm saying. Because if they were filled, they would have been filled with all of the wrong people. Now, I know in safety and security alone, there's about 157 funded vacant posts. Now you tell me, how can a department function with so many people not being employed in that department? You look at your Metro Police. There's only 118 Metro Police for the entire Metro. Tshwane has 4,500 Metro Police. You see? Now all of these things can only be dealt with people that are competent. That's why I'm telling you. It is not the instability as much as what it is competence. Because you get many of your small municipalities of the ANC that is wholly and fully run by the ANC, but they get disclaimer on disclaimer on disclaimer. So it shows you it has nothing to do with instability, but more with competence. So how I wish that we would get the right person at the head as a city manager, and thereafter all of these positions of ED, that it must be filled with the competent people that we have, not of Nelson Mandela Bay, but of the country. But this metro does not imbue confidence to any person, because people that are really great, they don't want to employ to come and work here. Because this metro is known for all of the funny things instead of the great name of Nelson Mandela Bay. So how I wish that after this next move, of government, whether good is part of it or not, we don't care. But that we would have a government in place that firstly would care for the people on the ground.
If you can be offered an MMC position,
we will consider anything that comes, Percy. But
will
as
take
I said,
it.
What I'm saying for me as a person, I am not desperate to be in a position. Because you see currently where I am.
But if you can be offered, you will take it.
No, I won't say I will take it. It must also be on some condition. You cannot just want to take a thing just for the sake of taking it. Understand? So,
do you have an interest of leading safety and security?
Well, I think I did a much better job than this guy that is currently
Do you
there.
still have that interest?
If I must be offered that, I will be able to do it.
You will take it.
The semantics, you say take it, I say do it, is the same thing.
Just before we run out of time, Mr. Kasim, in your discussions with the ANC. As we are saying, the process is taking place of engaging one another. Now that in the report that says the ANC would love to occupy that office of the executive mayor, and then USDA, now that you are having the same numbers as ANC, are you also interested to take the deputy executive mayor's position? Do you consider that in your discussions with the ANC?
But Percy, it's not about positions. I've said it before, and maybe you're not satisfied with my answer. It's not about positions.
It's about what?
It's about bringing stability and good governance back to Nelson Mandela Bay. I know everybody gets excited about positions.
Mr. Kassim?
And that's what brought us, no please, that's what brought us to the mess that this city is in at the moment. The ANC's national decision-making structures have taken certain decisions. They have said that in their coalitions, the party with the most votes should take the executive mayor.
Are you going to allow
position.
them now that you've got the same seats in the council?
But Percy, we have the same seats. The DA has the most votes in Nelson Mandela Bay. Okay? So whatever discussions that take place, there must be a principle that is involved. And at this point in time, those discussions have not taken place because our interest is not in positions. Our interest in how can we stop this mess, this chaos that is currently happening. Our councillors are under pressure.
And how are you going to do that without having influential positions?
There are many different scenarios.
How?
No, but Percy, there are many different
How?
scenarios. One could have a grand coalition. One could have a government of municipal unity. One could have a confidence and supply arrangement where one party takes the legislature, in this instance would be council, the other party takes the executive positions, and there's proper accountability in place. So there are many different scenarios and configurations in place. It's not about sitting around the table and horse trading positions. Our interest is we are desperately concerned about the conditions in our communities. I live in those communities. I live in the northern areas. My councillors cannot keep being blamed for something that is the fault, that is out of their control, where officials are not coming back to them, where Gary goes to Ward 48 in the Ghat and makes all sorts of promises, and Councillor Franay van der Linde needs to answer to those promises. That is where our thinking is at. It's not about mayor or deputy mayor and so forth.
just before we run out of time, do you have any time frames in your engagements with the ANC?
No, there are no time frames at this point.
When did you start your engagements?
The provincial leader of the DA, Andrew Whitfield, had reached out to the provincial chairperson of the ANC, Oscar Mabuyane. There have been discussions that have taken place between the two of them. And as I've said to you, as of Monday morning this week, I've written to the provincial secretary of the ANC in order to further those discussions. We've proposed a date where those discussions would take place. And I've also spoken personally with the Premier yesterday. I've just driven back from Bishu for this interview. And I've reminded him that we are awaiting confirmation in that respect. So we've been open about that. We've also been approached by the Civil Society Coalition, as have the ANC, who believe that there must be some sort of discussions between us and the ANC as the two biggest parties.
I just want to give Councillor Drone just 15 seconds. Councillor Drone, are you prepared to work with the ANC?
Percy, yes, no, I said that we're not afraid to work with the ANC or the DA or anything, but in closing, Percy, let us say, I hope the last time I come for another interview, then Gary's no more mayor. Thank you.
Let's leave it there. Guys, thank you very much. Provincial Chairperson Yusuf Kassim, thank you very much for making time. And you, Councillor Gary Van,
I
Councillor Lawrence Throne, beg your pardon. Siyabulela kuni nonke nje emakhaya ngokuba kunye nathi kwinkqubo yethu i-VOB Voice of the Bay. Ibali lalapha kumasipala Mbaxa kaMandela sihleli ezithendeni. We are following the story. Siyabulela kakhulu ngokuba kunye nathi. Till we meet again, that will be next week, Wednesday at 7 up until 8 o'clock. Kodwa ke idinga tomorrow between 6 and 9 kwinkqubela FM kwi-KGFM talk show with myself, uPercy M. Busuku benzolo. Adios, amigos. God bless.